Good day, folks. This is Paul De La Garza with High Performance Business Solutions. I'd like to welcome you to today's mini webinar, Positioning Effective Accountability. We're going to start in approximately 4 minutes. So, in the meantime, get comfortable. We'll be right with you. And we will talk to you in a few moments. Hello, folks. How are you doing? This is Paul De La Garza with High Performance Business Solutions. I'd like to welcome you to this week's installment of our webinars in live. And this week, we're going to be covering the positioning of effective accountability. And we want to tell you that we're going to be covering a significant number of topics today. So it might be a little bit longer than just by a couple of minutes than what perhaps you may have experienced in times past for those of you that have joined me previously. So again, my name is Paul De La Garza. So here's my contact information. I wanted to let you know if you have not joined me before, I'm an executive coach. I am a speaker, and I focus predominantly on leadership. Today, we're going to talk about accountability, a subject that by and large is in some cases misapplied by many leaders. And the objective of accountability is to establish an accountability that becomes crucial so that you are going to accomplish your goals and that essentially your mission is achieved and your team delivers the results that you want. Now, they may sound fairly obvious, and yet accountability, unfortunately, and I shouldn't complain because this has kept me employed, is misapplied. Typically, the definition of accountability for many people is to say, well, accountability, when someone doesn't do their job, I hold them accountable and I either put them in a disciplinary action on a performance improvement plan, or I terminate the individual. And accountability is a great deal more. As a matter of fact, accountability has its foundation in effective delegation, which we covered last week. And if you haven't seen that, I would encourage you to actually go to my LinkedIn website and my LinkedIn space and check that out, because it gives you a lot of pertinent information about effectively delegating. So let's talk about the one of the key components of effective accountability. First and foremost, you have to be clear on your expectations. You have to define the objectives that you want. You have to define the goals that you want, and they have to be smart, strategic, measurable, attainable, okay, relevant, and time driven or time bound. But the other thing that you have to do as well is to make sure that you are clear on the way that you're going to communicate the responsibilities, the level of authority that you're giving that person. You see, accountability starts at that point. Accountability starts in you making sure that your team member is buying in on the delegated or given assignment, given task. And that buy-in needs to be based on the way that you've selected the person, that it's the right person, they have the skill set, that they understand it, that they have a clear understanding of not only what the expectations are, but of the timelines associated with that. One of the things that is extremely important is that when you are literally leading, you need to set from the get-go a culture of accountability. And that culture of accountability is comprised of a number of things. One of them is that you lead by example, that the very things that you do and the way that you conduct your own affairs, the way that you maintain yourself accountable for making sure that you deliver to your team, because in essence, as a leader, you're a servant of that team, that you are accountable, that you are clear, that you are delivering exactly what you promised. Number two, that when you want to establish a culture of accountability, that you promote a culture of open communication, that you foster a bilateral exchange of ideas in which, even if you are challenged in the way that you are approaching a particular situation, that you are deliberate in the way that you are holding, yeah, not holding the team accountable, but in the way that you are listening and evaluating the ideas that are presented to you. And then lastly, when you have a culture of accountability, you promote ownership. Instead of giving somebody a task, have them own a vision, have them own a project. I talk about the person that I ask to go and paint a room in a conference room, and they paint it. And as opposed to the person that I say, this conference is going to be used for the communication of our client base or our vendors or all of the above, you now own it. What do you think you want to do with it? And within the framework of what you want, that is very achievable. And that ownership drives engagement. That ownership drives connection, and your culture as a leader begins to become very, very strong. In other words, you will have a culture of high performance. Now, accountability also requires that you do not wait until the day that you are expecting the deliverable to check in with that team member. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you are implementing regular check-ins. So the first thing that you do is set milestones. Break the process down into about 3 or 4 or 5 different checkpoints. No, you're not micromanaging. That's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is essentially you being able to steward that individual to make sure that not only you're supporting and re-guiding, but that if there's any kind of potential failure points, that you anticipate them and you make the course corrections on a timely basis, as opposed to finding out that you have failed and that your team has failed, both of you have, at the day of the deliverable. The second thing is that when you conduct regular one-on-one meetings, this milestone situation becomes almost second nature, because at that point, you've been able to literally validate the team member. They understand exactly who you are and your character, your connection with that individual is supremely better. In leadership, we have what we call the 5 powers of leadership. We're going to be talking about those powers in the future. One of them is referent power. And what that means is that the leader has been able to develop a sense of influence upon the team based on the leader's character, their ethics, their sensibilities, their emotional quotient. And when you have that, then you can truly claim that you are a leader, because just a very important point. Leadership cannot be claimed. Leadership is conferred by the team. You may have legitimate power. You may have the power of a position that gives you authority to hire, fire, provide budgets, etc. Doesn't make you a leader. A leader is the individual that connects with the team, that has an accountability that is foundational from the standpoint of the way you even delegate to the point of how you hold them accountable. And then, of course, the third component is to ensure that you are holding progress meetings. So milestones and progress meetings go hand in hand. Now, if you're going to give someone something or a mission for which you're going to hold them accountable, it's essential that you provide them with, number one, the necessary tools and the resources, and equip them with exactly what they need in order to successfully achieve this. Please don't expect them to figure it out. Don't expect them to try and source it themselves. Give them as much support so that you can promote the certainty of the completion of the task. The second thing is offer support, and that's part of the milestone check-in and the regular check-ins of which we talked about. Okay. When you doing all those things and you monitor the performance and measure the performance, the thing is that you can then start establishing, because of the fact that these are SMART goals: strategic, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-driven, you can exact metrics. The key performance indicators, the KPIs, are a typical measure of such a thing. The second component would be to make sure that you document the progress, that you have a meeting and you literally send that individual an email that follows up and says, by the way, based on the meeting that we had today, you are right on target. Or if you're not, these are the things that you need to do, and this is the timeline so that you can get back on track. The last thing is, sometimes things don't go as planned. So what you have to do is to make sure that you adjust the strategy as necessary. Okay. So you've delegated the task, you've held the individual accountable, and the day of completion comes about. And now here's an opportunity for you to provide feedback and recognition. In some cases, you're going to give constructive feedback. Despite your best efforts of keeping the milestones going in the regular check-ins, this individual may have not accomplished exactly the goal that you wanted. Well, this is a great time to offer specific feedback, specific actionable items. But if the individual made it happen, then by God, recognize the achievement, reward the achievement, and make it public. Because this reaffirms to that individual the efficiencies of their efforts, how they fit into your culture, and the engagement that is the byproduct of both of those things. Hold people accountable. That's what this is about. However, there are a number of steps that you have to actually engage in order to hold them accountable. Number one, address the underperformance. Number two, develop an improvement plan. Now, if you're going to address the underperformance, make sure that you do this properly, clearly, directly, constructively, without impugning the dignity of that individual, but at the same token, being very direct. Number two, develop a plan. Okay? Develop a plan. If there's supposed to be a performance improvement plan at that point, make sure that you implement it so that that individual has an opportunity to correct the actions that you feel are necessary for him on which to improve. And then lastly, there are times when notwithstanding what you do, no matter what you do, the team member just simply either cannot or will not meet the expectations of the position awarded or the task given. And at that point, you have to, of course, engage in enforcing the consequences, which could be everything ranging from a reassignment to a reduced responsibilities, and in some cases, termination. Okay, so now you got through this whole thing, and the next thing that I want you to please consider is that you need to reflect and learn. So make sure that you do a postmortem, conduct a post-project review, and see how well you did. I will say this to you. Whether that team member succeeds or not, whatever that team member does is a reflection on you. If that team member failed, you did. I'm not telling you anything new. But because of that, it's extremely important that you then examine exactly how effectively you were, okay, in effectively delegating and outlining the accountability process. The other thing I would say to you is encourage, not only on your team or for your team, but for yourself, continuous improvement. At one point, we're going to talk about the Kaizen process, which is the Japanese ethic of continuous improvement. Powerful stuff. And I would say to you that you need to encourage your team to set up a mindset of continuous improvement, because that in of itself is a relevant, impactful level of a culture of accountability. So what do you do now? Well, the first thing that you have to do is to make sure that you develop a long-term, look upon accountability as a long-term objective, a long-term framework. Number one, establish ongoing processes that are going to be conducive to you succeeding in developing your culture of accountability. Systems that reinforce accountability, which may include regular performance reviews, ongoing training. Oh my God, that is super important. And of course, development opportunities. But also, review and refine. We don't always get it right on the first pass. We sometimes just simply do not have everything anticipated, that, or we can think of everything that is going to potentially happen. That's okay. I would rather that you launch something with the best level of preparation, even though you may have some doubts, than engage in paralysis by analysis. So periodically review your process, make sure that you make the necessary adjustments, and make sure that you lift the culture of your team to a culture of accountability. I want to thank you. Again, you've joined me today. I appreciate very much your time. We took all of 14 minutes instead of the normal 10 to 12 that we do. My name is Paul De La Garza. I am an executive coach and speaker. My firm is High Performance Business Solutions. There is some information below that you can actually enroll into my newsletter that includes a lot of information about leadership. And then I want to give you a heads up that in the next several days, you're going to start seeing in LinkedIn a promotion for a full, fairly detailed leadership course that I encourage you to please take into serious account, because it's going to help you transform your leadership into the next level. I want to thank you. I hope you're doing very, very well. Take care. And until next time, this is Paul De La Garza with High Performance Business Solutions.